All right, looks like we're live. Thanks everybody for coming. Not sure how big of a turnout this will be or anything, but first try that we're doing something like this, so I'm excited to see kind of what happens here. Still does blow my mind how many people find my videos helpful and useful and get value out of them. So I'm super happy about how the channel's turned out and how everything's gone, and excited to try out some live streaming, see if I can answer some live questions and answers here. For the purposes of this video today, using the new 5th gen Rode NT1. It's just an XLR mode right now, not doing anything too crazy with it. Haven't had a chance to try out the 32-bit float with it yet, but that's okay. So far, sounds exactly like the 4th gen, because I haven't gone through the 32-bit float stuff, but that's going in the Rodecaster Pro into Ecamm Live, and then I have the ATEM for video switching. We've been working a bunch on our website lately, trying to improve the articles and stuff, the companion articles for every video. So trying to make sure that the experience is good on both sides. The videos obviously need to stand on their own, but trying to help with the text-based stuff too. I know definitely for like the way I prefer to learn is just to skim an article. I know a lot of people, obviously everybody on YouTube likes learning from videos as well, because you can see, but trying to do a good balance of both, be as helpful as possible. Nice. Thanks to that one. Just saying how our videos are helpful. Curious to know what specifically you like about them or why you come to our videos. Obviously we work hard to provide videos that are helpful, but just curious to learn more specifically and the types of stuff that you found helpful on from your side. We are trying to spool up. We have a pretty big push here for the next 2 months. We're going to try to be a lot more consistent with the long form stuff. I've been doing a lot of shorts lately. I'm not sure if anybody's seen that, but the shorts that we've been doing are mostly just to complement the articles. So it's been a bit YouTube spammy, just dumping a whole bunch of them on YouTube to host them for the website to make the actual articles and blog form content better. But unfortunately, it means some days I dump six videos at a time. Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, the AV industry is pretty fun. I miss it and I don't miss it. I do miss, we used to work 2 or 3 events a day, 7 days a week, for long stretches of time. And nothing can really beat that feeling of, selling an event, knocking it out, everything to a perfect time. And then at, midnight, you close up the truck, go home, do it all over again. If you have a good group of guys, it could be really fun, really rewarding. I don't miss the hours, but I do miss working with the team. Yeah, the team was pretty fun. What are the correct settings when recording audio in an audio program? I mean, that really depends on what you're trying to do. There's definitely no one size fits all. And the cool thing about audio is even though that there are some theoretically right ways to approach things, you'll often find success just with whatever works for your workflow. There are rules of thumb and settings, but like most rules, you can break them and just get the job done or whatever sounds good to you. Because ultimately, like a lot of other things, you don't want to sound or be exactly like everybody else. So try find something that works for you and your workflow. Also curious to know if there's anybody looking for new gear. or got new gear recently. We're always trying to get new stuff here so we can play with it and experiment with it. But if there's anything that you have on your wish list, I'm curious to learn about it. Also curious, one person so far said AV industry, but I'm curious to know more about like what you're actually doing with the videos. Like, is it podcasting? Is it live streaming? Is it live events? Is it DJ stuff? Or a little bit of everything? Usually people that are into audio end up doing a little bit of everything, but nice. Thank you for this comment. Just thank me for the shorts. Said that they were having issues with their SM7B, but are short with the Dynamite DM1, showing how it reduces the gain by almost 45% on an interface like the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. That's true. That's actually insane. That's a really, really big difference, and that will clean up your audio a lot if you're using SM7B with some type of budget audio interface. There are like the next gen of audio interfaces coming out now that are all aware of the situation, and they're not holding back on the preamps. All the new preamps coming out have like 70 to 75 dB of gain to solve this problem. But there are still a lot of preamps and audio interfaces that definitely benefit from some type of inline preamp. I do think the DM1 is the best of the pack in terms of value. The Fathead is less expensive, a little less gain. Yeah, that's cool. And hello to Renee. Jason asked, any more content about video products? I would love to do one on how to set up a video wall. I just need to find a way to get my hands on one. Perhaps I can find some friends in the industry or something and try borrow one for a day. Video walls are actually very, very simple to set up. Most of the work with building a big LED wall has to do with running power calculations and figuring out how many panels per circuit. Once you know what you're doing in terms of power, they're basically big Lego blocks. And depending on how you chain them all together, you just need to have a consistent pattern. So you power up the wall however makes sense. Maybe these 5 panels are on a circuit and these 4 panels are on a circuit. But outside of that, it's pretty straightforward. Then you just daisy chain with Ethernet cable, and then the controller kind of does the rest. But it would be fun to do a video on that. Yeah. Just got an Audio Go. It's been great to connect line level from my mixer to my computer. That's cool. I've never actually got to play with an Audio Go yet. I've seen it. I've looked at it on paper, but that's pretty good. Oh, they changed their mind. It's an Audio Box Go. So I'd assume that's PreSonus. I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar with it. So I'm new to audio and wondering what the point of a compressor is. So if you can imagine a singer with a really wide dynamic range, they have quiet moments and they have loud moments. That can drive an audio engineer crazy because you have to ride the fader. You're constantly turning them up and turning them down depending on their engagement with the microphone and dynamics. So what a compressor really does is it just squishes the dynamic range. It makes the quieter moments just a little bit louder. And then when you exceed the threshold on the louder moments, then it compresses it by a ratio. So basically just squishes you into a narrower range. This makes it a lot easier to mix and you get a lot more consistent result. That being said, the downside of over compressing is that you rob all the emotion and the dynamics out of it. So you don't want to turn whatever you're working with into a robot. You still want it to have dynamics. You don't want to over squish it. But a compressor is a very useful tool for sure. Good wireless microphone, anything by Shure, Sennheiser. Really don't mess around with other brands. If you're in like mobile video world, Rode has a lot of good products. There's a bunch of kind of new stuff coming out. But if you're on stage in live events, sure, Sennheiser. Don't mess around with Line 6 or any of these other companies. They're just horrible. I am curious as to know what you're wanting to do with the wireless microphone, if it's actually live events or if you're doing like mobile filming. Rode seems to have kind of cornered the market on the mobile products. But that being said, like obviously if you're in like a pro broadcast or running a TV truck or something like that, it's still all Shure and Sennheiser. So do you need a power conditioner as a mobile DJ putting a flight case together? If you're putting together a rack and your dream is to unpack everything and just roll it into the room and take the lid off and power it on, a power conditioner serves a bunch of different purposes. One, it conditions the power and it'll protect your gear. Two, it's basically like a rack-mounted power bar. So it's really nice in terms of cable management. So it does add a lot of value there. And three, you get a lot of other like gizmos. You'll get like a phone charger out of it. You'll get the little telescoping lights that light your rack so you can see what you're doing in the middle of your set. I know the Furman are like the industry standard. I have some friends that work at Radial because they're just down the road from me here, and they just made a new one. I haven't got to play with it at all, but they're pretty proud of the power conditioner that they came up with. So that's pretty cool. But definitely worth the money, especially at events, like all the hotels and ballrooms and golf courses and everything that I've worked in. Like, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where you plug your power in and the extension cord's hanging from the wall. Like, we made a practice of like doubling it back and taping the cable to the wall because all the outlets there are just so worn out. And when you're in a situation like that, that's how you get inconsistent power. So a power conditioner could be helpful and really save your day. I've never used RCF mixer, but they are nice. I love RCF PAs. I think their PA systems are incredible. Definitely like the sweet spot of like value if you're running like a 500 cap stage. Their small like mini line array products are pretty cool. They sound really good and they're, affordable for a local production company. If you're looking for price conscious truss, like we always ran Global Truss or Trust, TRUSST. That's like the Chauvet's brand, but it's the same like F34 spec. But this sounds like it's probably overkill for you. I know ADJ makes some like ladder truss for like mobile DJ setups. Depends. Truss is one thing that you don't really want to mess around with. Depends where you're at in the world. But where we're at here, they actually inspect the manufacturer label rating and make sure that it's actually rated by an engineer, where maybe in some areas of the world, they don't care too much about that. But we always had to buy spec because some of our competitors didn't, and then they would get, called out on site and they couldn't actually use the truss that they brought because it's not rated to be above people's heads. So that's something to keep in mind there. So definitely go with some North American supplied. If you're in North America, get a proper rated solution from Global Truss. They're probably the best distributed. And the cost of truss really isn't in the cost of truss. Most of what you're going to pay for is shipping anyway. The difference between the quality of truss that you get is probably worth just getting the better one. If you got a Shure SM7B, so I did a bunch of different videos on XLR cables that you can check out. I think the Canary XLR are the best value. Right now, they're actually really hard to get. You can really only get them on B&H Photo, and even then they're backed up quite a bit. If you're in a studio environment like me and you just have like a lot of stuff in a small confined space, the quad core is a better solution. So Canary or Mogami or any one of those. I think right now I'm using the Mogami Studio Gold. That being said, if you spent all your money on like a really good setup and you only have a couple bucks more, An Amazon Basics one will work. There's just worse shielding, and generally the solder points on the connector aren't as good. And the connector itself, you'll find on like less expensive cables, just doesn't fit as good inside the microphone. But if you want to see some teardowns, I did do 3 or 4 videos there where we actually ripped them apart to show you what you get when you spend more money on a higher end XLR cable. I mean, if you bought a Shure SM7B and a Rodecaster, like some crazy setup, just spend the $50 on like a really nice cable. If you're out of money, just get the Amazon Basics one for now. Yeah, that's a good point. There is a difference between a power conditioner and a surge protector. We generally never bothered with surge protectors, but I've also heard of guys getting a big boom on a mobile power supply and frying their stuff. Generally, though, where we're at, if we were ever like out in the middle of a field, we had to bring in like an actual electrician. There's like event power companies out here. So we always had clean power. So it wasn't something that we ever like worried about running off of sketchy generators or anything. It really depends on kind of the risk profile. If you think that you're running on insecure power and different things, then it might be a good investment. Yeah, so if you're doing mobile karaoke and mobile DJ, Shure has like some affordable lines of wireless mics. I would go with them. I think they have like a B series still. I'm a little bit out of touch with it. Like QLX is like their $1,000, $1,500 like pro setup. But there is one down below if that would work well for you if you're always within kind of like 30 feet of the receiver, even if the receiver is rated for 100 feet. But you should be looking to spend like $400 to $500 on a wireless per channel, at least in an environment like that. Wireless mics at events are one of those things where it's really hard to spend the money on it, but it's so embarrassing when you get bad wireless at an event. And in that one moment that you're embarrassed by your bad wireless, you would pay anything. So you have to try keep that in mind when you're on the front end of it and try to stay ahead of it. Live events just need to go perfect, and every dollar you spend before will save you headaches at every single time. Thanks a lot for your videos. What do you think about the PreSonus Studio Live? I really don't like PreSonus stuff, unfortunately. Whenever we got, all our stuff was always Allen and Heath, Yamaha, stuff like that. But every once in a while, I'd have to get like flown to Vegas to run equipment for a client of mine. And we'd have to pick up rental gear. And every time we got a PreSonus console, it was just so noisy and so hissy and so, it wasn't my preference. I don't like the workflow on them. I find them kind of clunky to work with. It's just personal preference. I know some people do like them and a lot of people like swear by them. I find their preamps to be quite noisy and quite hissy, even at a live event, which like is not as bad as a studio. You don't notice it as much, but even then we noticed it quite a bit. I think I have a couple videos on this. One that's like 3 months old or something. How can I connect the MG12XU mixer to my iPhone so I can record from my phone and use the audio from the mixer? The easiest way to do it is just to take a USB cable from the back of the mixer into your phone. That does work on iPhones. iPhones are kind of a pain in the butt. I was on a stream last night. You can connect like audio mixers to them like that, and it'll work good in GarageBand and in the default video app. But then every once in a while, if you're using some third-party app, like last night I was trying to stream on YouTube Stream Together, and it just wouldn't take it. There's too many like security issues where the iPhone tries to protect you, unless it's like a real audio app that's been like vetted by Apple. They won't let that connection through. In which case, then you have to go the other way, and you have to get like an Apple. Let's see if I can switch and show you, like the actual Apple Lightning to TRS adapter. And then if you have that, then you just feed a line level signal into that. And I have a couple videos on that. If you want to look up, I have a video on how to set up a mix minus, and it'll show you a cable that you can use to do that. But two options. Best case scenario, depending on the app that you're using, you can just go USB straight in. Worst case scenario, you have to get the Lightning to TRS adapter for a headphone jack and then feed it that way. Behringer rack mixer, the XR18, and QSC mains, probably like K12s or 12.2s or something, I'm guessing. Do you recommend going from the XLR out to the ins on the mains? XLR out to the ins on the mains. Or line out to line in. Yeah, you take the XLR out of your rack and go XLR in at a line level, for sure. Please help. I have no experience. Record music at home using SSL2 Plus, and in-ear monitors are the Shure SE215s. I just don't know what the issue is. Here it is. When I connect my in-ear monitors to the interface, I get bad quality sound, not very clean, not very dynamic. What should I use? Headphones, amp, DAC, or whatever. Yeah, well, the issue that you're probably experiencing is that you're just getting the raw audio from the mic. So it's not going to sound golden until you like EQ it or compress it or anything. And if you're doing live monitoring, it's just going to kind of sound flat. That's just what comes with live monitoring. But then the downside is if you add a bunch of processing while you're live monitoring, then you get latency, which is more frustrating. So there's really no good solution. You're not going to get that tasty audio on live monitoring with no delay unless you're using some type of like mixer solution that's doing it all in one for you with very little latency. And again, some of this will depend on like the processing power of your computer as well. Small digital mixer for events. Remote controlled Soundcraft. I haven't checked it out too much. We always swore by the QU16. It's like a really, really old mixer now. It's probably almost 10 years old. But, I mean, they still sell them, and they're extreme. The thing I liked about that's the audio mixer that brought me from analog to digital. So I have some bias there, but you can show anybody that's never worked on a digital mixer before, you can show them the QU16, and it just kind of makes sense if you're coming from analog world. It's really easy to use. There's not a lot of crazy like effects or plugins or anything on it. There's 2 FX channels, but you get, I think, 10 outputs. So you can run in-ears for a whole band. It has a lot of really nice features, and it won't destroy the bank. But there are more things like that. Behringer has a whole bunch of stuff in that range as well. Yamaha has one. I wasn't a huge fan of the Yamaha TF series. Yeah, there's definitely some options. I'm just partial to Allen and Heath in general. What headphones am I using? So Beyerdynamic DT770. So these are the closed-back version of the super popular DT990. And I just wanted closed-back ones because I'm using a condenser mic here. So I just wanted to make sure the mic never heard the headphones. Yeah, exactly. Wireless for events, you can't be too proactive on them. It's as much as you can do ahead of time to knock everything out, especially if you're in a big like conference center. You will definitely need to coordinate wireless with other channels. You don't want to just be spinning up a random wireless channel and get an earful from a AV tech that's one room over. You have to definitely work smart, but every minute that you put in and every dollar that you put into good wireless does pay off at the event eventually. And you'll never notice it. You just realize that you have less headaches in your life and less people that are mad and less quality issues. But it's a better way to go. How often? I don't know. This is obviously the first one that I'm doing like this. It's more just trial and error. Mostly I just wanted to like, my videos are pretty like meat and potatoes, and I know I'm like missing a lot of things. And another thing I'm like aware of now is like I'm not working at 600 events a year. I'm just kind of off in my own little world now. So I think I want to try do them like weekly or bi-weekly, just to make sure that like the content that we're making continues to answer questions that people actually have. And it is helpful. And then also if there are gaps, maybe I won't, refilm a video or fix a video or anything like that, but hopefully you can get your question answered in this method. The Flow 8, yeah, it covers a lot of bases. Wondering how much power it can handle, especially when you fill it up with instruments. Like on a digital mixer, I wouldn't be worried about power issues or anything. I've never played with it. I watched a couple reviews on it. But like the Behringer digital stuff is pretty legit ever since they've been rolling with the X series. I've never been a huge fan of like the Behringer workflow. It just never like worked how my head works, but they're nice and they sound good and you can get a good result for them. And the Flow 8 was definitely like in that next generation where they learned a lot from it too. So it definitely could be a good buy if you think that it'll cover your inputs that you have. No, that's one thing I don't do. I don't do one-on-one. I try to just answer questions. And the reason I don't do one-on-one, and this will kind of sound maybe like it doesn't make sense, but it's just impossible to take somebody's money and promise them that you're going to help without being there and actually knowing that you're going to be able to help. So I just don't want to ever get in that situation where I'm like an hour in, I'm invested, and I haven't helped this person. I'd rather just make videos and give the advice so hopefully you learn and you know how to sort it out or at least what to look for. That's why a lot of my videos can be like super repetitive. The amount of times that we've explained line level versus mic level and all these types of concepts, TRS versus TS cables. I just try to make every video complete to help as many people as possible, but I don't really want to be tech support for somebody. That's just not where I want my energy to be. We get this offer quite a bit actually, but unfortunately it's not what I'm into right now. The limit with the red light. I've never actually had RCF attached to like my rig, but I've just seen them from other companies. But generally, if the light is flashing, that's like you can push it harder, but the limiter is going to start kicking in, and you're going to lose dynamic range, and you're going to lose headroom, and you're going to lose a lot of those good things. So, yeah, for one event, you can push, but it's a warning sign that if you ever get in that situation again, you should be doubling up. So if you're running with two 12-inch speakers or two 15-inch speakers and you're in the limiter, get through that one. But, the next event, you probably need more firepower. We definitely got in that situation a couple of times when we were growing. We expanded to like 1,000 cap room, and we really never knew what we were doing in a room that size. So we just pushed the heck out of the speakers and got through it. But it's definitely not ideal. It's hard on the equipment, and you lose dynamic range and headroom and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm curious about this one. Like, I was thinking about this today, how often something like this would provide value. I'd assume that there's some sweet spot where, people get used to them and they can schedule and they know if they have questions that they can come get them answered, but there's probably a point of diminishing returns where you don't want to do it too much either. Asking about the headphone or amp, because I mix music using headphones with audio interface. All professional producers say that you need an amp or DAC to hear all the details, so what to do. I'm curious if you've just plugged them into your computer and bypassed the SSL and to see if you've been happier. Because the SSL I'm trying to remember, when I ran it with these, I know I have a video out there on it, but it's pushing a set of 250 ohm headphones is not easy. You said you're using in-ears. That's right. It should be no problem to push in-ears, but also just as like a side detail, if you're doing pro mixing, I use in-ears quite a bit for video production. But I would say if you're actually doing mixing, you want to be on a set of near field monitors. Closed back headphones or open back headphones are fine, but you really want to see how you want to listen to it, how most people are going to listen to it. So I'd say if you're really wanting to mix, I would probably lean towards full-size headphones because it's just a physics problem. You're going to get more frequency response out of bigger drivers and near-field monitors. I think you'll be happier. That's a good question. Right now I'm using it in XLR mode, the NT1 5th gen. So the 32-bit float thing, I believe it's mostly a post-production thing. I haven't tested it too much, but my understanding of how 32-bit float works is that it's a lot like HDR with photography, so high dynamic range, and 32-bit float, it basically expands your dynamic range, so it works the same. So if you know anything about HDR photography, the theory is that you take a photo 3 times, you underexpose it, you overexpose it, and then you expose it normally. So if you think about something like a real estate photography picture, the underexposed photo will allow the window to look good. The overexposed photo will allow the dark points to look good. The normal exposed photo will highlight 80% of it. And then you put the best of those 3 photos together and you get this beautiful, clear image. My understanding is that that's basically what 32-bit float does. They're recording at low gain, medium high, and high gain in parallel to get you that whole dynamic range that's basically at the capacity of the microphone. So you're going to blow out the microphone before you exceed that dynamic range. And then the software is giving you all that to play with. So I don't know if you can do that live, to be perfectly honest. I know that you can record straight into like Resolve with 32-bit float. And the ATEM uses Fairlight, which is in Resolve as the audio mixer. So I do want to test that. That's probably something I'm going to get into in the next week or two because 32-bit float is coming up. But I do wonder if that will work because Fairlight is in ATEM and Resolve, and you can record live to it. So what's the difference between that and streaming? That would be really cool if you could stream without having to worry about setting your gain. Wondering if there's any way for a person to know if the WAV file you sent them has been processed or noise reduction. You probably just need to listen. I don't know if there's any obvious signs. Like it would be obvious if there's compression or something like that because you'd see the dynamic range if you had it on a waveform. It's usually pretty obvious if it's been processed with that, but noise reduction would probably be more just listening to it. Yeah, Mackie HM4s are good. That is good. Acoustic guitar, Rode NT1 to the MG10XU, then the Zoom R8 recorder. How is the best way to cut? You just come out of the line outputs. So into the Zoom 8, just make sure that your Zoom 8 is set on a line input. And then you can go XLR out of your mixer into the Zoom 8, or you can go balanced TRS, or you can go balanced TRS to XLR. It really won't make much of a difference. The other thing you could do is just use the USB out of the back of the MG10XU and run straight into your computer if you want as well. Yeah. See if there's any more questions. I'm curious if there's like any specific videos or concepts that people don't know or want to see more of. We've done a pretty good job, I think, of going through like all the buttons on audio mixers and interfaces and stuff, but we do have some more stuff coming soon on connecting like external preamps to audio mixers and audio interfaces, and then how to use an insert on an audio mixer. So if you want an outboard compressor, or if you want outboard compressor or outboard reverb in a specific channel. So we're going to show you how to do that. Dave Ratt's video. I haven't seen his video on a realistic sounding speaker. I've seen like bits and pieces of his content here and there, but I probably haven't seen one of his videos in, I don't know, a year or something like that. I don't know if he's still active now that events are coming back, because I know he's kind of just doing the YouTube stuff to fill his time. But yeah, obviously the guy is a legend. Yeah, that's the crazy thing about YouTube, is you can get like kind of into a corner and then you forget some of these people exist and make awesome videos. I always liked all his videos, but you could just miss them for a while. I connected it yesterday to Unity for like 15 minutes. I was just playing around with it. So we went USB out of the NT1 5th gen into Unity on this laptop, and it felt very similar to the Rodecaster in terms of you can just turn on processing, and then it has like the depth and sparkle and similar controls. And then you can go in and like manually tweak the de-esser and stuff like that if you want. Mackie or Yamaha for online, Instagram, YouTube, live stream, use USB to phone. So the Mackie does work USB to phone. I found it a little bit more finicky when I filmed the video on how to connect the Mackie to my iPad or whatever. It was like the first time I did it in the video, it didn't take. So I restarted my iPad, then it did. But the Yamaha always just kind of worked. So that's one thing, that's just my personal experience. Other than that, I actually prefer the Mackie. I'm assuming we're talking about the 10 series, like ProFX 10v3 versus MG10XU. Because the Mackie has mute buttons, it has inserts, it has more one knob compressors. The Yamaha has better effects, and the effects on the Yamaha have the parameter knob, so you get more control, which is nicer. I do cover all that in that. I have a video, Mackie versus Yamaha, but it really depends what you want. A lot of people, the effects are like make or break, where I never valued effects that much because we always just did corporate work and it was just talking head and it wasn't music based. But if you're wanting reverb and all that stuff, the Yamaha is better. You're welcome, Jason. Thanks for coming. Glad to hear that, yeah, you got everything, that you've been getting value out of it. It's still crazy. It actually blows my mind that people watch my videos so much, and it's never quite expected. Obviously hoped that our videos would be helpful, but MG Mixer, Mackie Pro for online stream and YouTube. Yeah, I think I already did this one. Didn't have issues. I mean, no, I never had issues with the Yamaha, but again, it depends what device you're going into. I know, like, generally speaking, if you're using an Android device, they're way more compliant to outboard gear. But the iPhones are so finicky in terms of what they will tolerate in terms of trying to keep your phone secure, that you really have to be going to GarageBand or the built-in movie app. Last night I did a stream on a YouTube app and it just refused to take outboard gear through the lightning jack. So that's a no-go. Thanks, Rick. Cool. Thanks for the feedback. I'd assume stock market investing here is doing some sort of YouTube videos or podcasts or something. That's cool. It's an interesting niche for sure. Thank you. Yeah, we try, I don't know, I just kind of try, remember when I was getting started, I literally just tried to make the videos that I want to see. When I looked at YouTube, there's a lot of really good content on YouTube, but it just wasn't the way that I wanted the information presented, so I just wanted to do it a little bit differently, but glad that you liked it. But yeah, hopefully, we'll see. Probably won't film tomorrow, and this weekend's kind of crazy, but I'd assume we'll have more videos coming out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, trying to get more videos coming this week. The Rodecaster Pro is easy to use. I use it for work myself, but since I have a goodish understanding of mixer routing, sometimes I wish it was just a regular mixer. Yeah, for sure. I like mixers. I do definitely miss those like 16 channel size digital mixers where you get the EQ up top, the compressor up top, all the tools. You can see exactly what you're doing. You can see how it's working. The Rodecaster is awesome, but you kind of just have to take it for what it is. And it sounds good and it works good. I think of it as basically like hitting the easy button where it's a little like disengaging a little bit. And I find like it's easy to like lean on it in terms of just connect your microphone and it works for you. I do kind of miss getting in there a little bit more with a full-size digital mixer, but it is definitely helpful and it's definitely like you can take it out of the box, plug 4 microphones in, and you can hit record to an SD card within a minute. It's ridiculous. Video on DAWs. Yeah. I purposely ignore everything to do with software and DAWs. It's for a bunch of different reasons. One, because there's 5 or 6 of them that probably could use coverage. And for each DAW, there are really good guys on YouTube that know how to walk through it. The other reason that I don't do a lot of software-based stuff is because you can make a whole beautiful library of tutorials. And then, next year there's a new version of Logic or Ableton or whatever, and all those videos are just dead. You can definitely help people, but it's like, and it's also so subjective what you do in the software itself. So you'd have to make, in order to help as many people as I can help by doing hardware-based videos, I'd be spread way too thin, and then the videos would constantly be getting outdated. And I just find my time and energy is probably better spent on the hardware stuff. Curious what DAW you'd use, though. Just more curiosity than anything. But there's a lot of really good people making awesome videos on YouTube walking through. But that being said, I know that there's not like there's some, but I know I had a video on how to like set up a 2i2 and just record a podcast with 2 different microphones. And I don't think anybody makes like a video like that, just how to like get it in and hit record. But well, that's why we're here. Yeah, definitely curious to see what your question is. Do people actually edit on the Rodecaster? I would doubt it. You can trim and stuff, but I would say that it's more built for a more relaxed podcast where you're just trying to get it in the can, trim it, and publish it. And if you're wanting to do any editing, then you, like the way I do it is just pop out the SD card and it's all, the whole multi-track is there, and then you can go edit it after the fact. But I haven't even tried to edit on it. To me, it would just be too slow. It's easier just to pop it out and work in a DAW that I'm comfortable in. Shure SM7B today. Congrats. Wave XLR, nice. Gain is 63, although my voice cuts off when I talk quietly on Discord. Do you think that's an issue caused by Discord? If your voice cuts off, you probably have a noise gate somewhere in your signal chain, or you have a noise gate in your wavelink somewhere. So that would probably be set too aggressively. You need to open up the threshold a bit or reduce the amount that it's coming down. I would say that noise gate is the issue if it's just cutting off when you get quiet. Should I buy a mix? Depends what he's wanting to stream on YouTube. Do you know what content and what phone he's using to give it probably a better answer? Yeah, I think you're right. I'm pretty sure you can trim, maybe, but I haven't got into it. I would say it's mostly, you can put markers in and stuff like that, but I think you're right. Hello. Guitar and microphone. I know Roland makes like a really compact, I forget what they call it, but it's basically built exactly for that, to get a guitar and a microphone plugged into your phone for recording and streaming to YouTube. So I would say, and then you say that you have iPhone or Android, I would go into an Android device because they're generally more compliant. But if you're using an Android, then you can really use anything. Like an MG10 would be fine. MG10 is probably better because you have like the one knob compressor and you have the built-in effects. Yeah, depends what you want to do, but MG10 is not a bad way to go. I really want to try get my hands on a MG or AG08 that just came out. Looks super cool for streaming from Yamaha. Yep. See if we give it a couple more minutes here if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I think that'll be it for the day. This has been fun. Curious to know if you guys do want more of these. See, we've had a decent amount of people here this whole time. Right? It's the best time to get into audio in general. There's so much stuff out right now for such a good price. Like a year ago, you would have been happy to buy the NT1 just as an XLR mic. So if you're wanting to get into studio recording or anything like that, you would have been happy to buy the NT1, get an interface for it, and you'd have a whole little studio for like $500. But now, for the same price, you can get the same microphone and just connect it to USB before you get pulled into it and before you even know what you're looking for in terms of an audio interface or characteristics or inputs or anything like that. If your first move into audio was to get the 5th gen NT1, like that's awesome. You could do so much with it now. And like you said, for under $200, I did a video on like, if you're wanting to get into podcasting, like the Mayano mics are like $50. You can get XLR or USB, and like you can be rolling with your one-person podcast for $50 and sound great. You might need a windscreen on top of that. And audio interfaces like the Volt 2 now came out. It's a monster. The Rodecaster, if you're wanting to do podcasting only, it's so good. Yeah, now is an awesome time to get everything that comes out. Like every 2 weeks, something cooler and less expensive comes out now. It's awesome. Right. Yes. they all market it to the iPhone users because it's seen as being creative and all that, but then the iPhones are the hardest to connect to. Will you test a wireless mic like the Rode Wireless Go or DJI mic? That'd be cool. That's one thing I don't do a lot of is like, yeah, obviously they're awesome products. I just don't do a lot of like run and gun product, like filming with like a SLR. Like if I'm working with the SLR, I'm generally in a studio like this. That being said, I am like teasing this other project where it might be a good fit. But yeah, the Rode Wireless Go and the DJI stuff is pretty cool. It'll be very interesting to see what DJI does over the next couple of years. Field recorders and specialty microphones. Depends. I did a lot of videos with, like the Tascam, like lav recorder, and then I wanted to get the Zoom one that has 32-bit float. I assume that's going to come up again soon because 32-bit float is the topic of the day right now. So I might do more. But in terms of like film-based field recorders, like underneath a SLR camera, like probably not. Most of what we try to talk about is like less than $500. And I did do a couple videos on like how to connect to a SLR camera and recommended some products in the $100 range, $500 range, and $1,000 range to kind of solve that problem. But yeah, I think, yeah, maybe one day. It's just not maybe in my wheelhouse to talk about and compare those ones just because I'm not so close to the film industry to provide enough context. When I talk about events, it's really easy because I've worked like 10,000 events. I used to be at 1,000 events a year with a production company that like 12 guys worked with me. So it's like I have so much context to talk about that stuff, but I wasn't close enough to film to give like relevant background information or context for field recorders. Does your PSA 1 Plus make a cloth to metal sound when you move it? I don't think so. I don't notice. I have two of them here. One I did the logo delete, and no, the whole point of the PSA 1 is that it's 1 Plus is that it's supposed to be an upgraded, better version of the 1. It's supposed to be silent. It's supposed to have all that buffer in it. So you really shouldn't ever hear any clicking or metal. Even the mounts to the table have better protection, better foam to buffer that like taps and stuff coming all the way through your system. So, no, if your PSA 1 Plus makes a cloth to metal sound, definitely not a metal to metal sound, and I don't know what a cloth to metal sound would sound like. You can hear, like, the only sound is just my hands on it, so I don't know. I don't think so. In-ears for a concert next week, would you recommend XLR or TRS cables, 50-foot? But yeah, if you're doing anything 50-foot, like you'll get the same quality. They're both balanced cables. It's the same cable. It's just a different connector on it. But if you're in event land, like making 50-foot runs, XLR is just easier because that cable is just ubiquitous on site. Like I know when we ran events, we just have trunks of XLR. Nobody packs a 50-foot TRS cable to an event. You'll pack 3 DI boxes before you pack a 50-foot TRS cable. So I would say XLR is just far more practical on site. Last question. I already have a Go XLR. Do you think it's a good idea to replace with a... I'm not like in love with the Go XLR. I know it solved a problem for the time, but it does seem a little bit dated now. I mean, but you have it, so I'm not recommending. I don't think it's a noticeable quality upgrade, but if you can get your money out of it, if you can sell it used and spend $100 more, the Rodecaster, Rode is putting so much money into it right now. It's getting the last firmware update pretty much caught it up. I think the built-in processing sounds better. I think, like I said before, it's easier. The Go XLR can be quite technical, and some people, even we had that one question already where I think somebody set an over-aggressive gate and it's clipping their mic out. That just doesn't really happen on the Rodecaster, but with the Go XLR workflow, I think it can happen, but depends if you know what you're doing or not. I don't think it's worth spending $500 to upgrade. Like, the quality difference is negligible unless you need more inputs. If you need more inputs and you want to grow with it, and if you have the desk space, because the Rodecaster is huge. 2 tops and 1 sub as a mobile DJ without a mixer. Put sub to booth input. Without a mixer. Okay, so you're just going DJ controller. I wouldn't go sub to booth input. So I'm curious as to whether or not you're running RCA out or a balance cable. I would try go main out. Like, in a perfect world, you should go main out, so XLR or TRS. Both go into the sub if your sub has left and right. And then from the sub, the crossover should do the frequency separation, and you go lefty-righty from there to your tops. Yeah, you should. But if you want control over the sub independently, first, that's actually a video I want to do, is aux-fed subs versus just daisy chaining the whole system and the benefits of both. Because for a small setup like you just described, you shouldn't be changing how your sub interacts with your tops between every song. That's a trick that you use when you're doing 1,000-person stage or greater outside. Because with aux-fed subs, you can say, I just want the bass guitar and the kick drum in the subs, because you have a bigger mixer and you can feed it just those specific channels. I never want a vocal in the sub. I never want, an acoustic guitar or anything like that, or piano, or maybe a piano, you might want some in the sub, but that type of thing, you make those bigger calls on a big stage. If you're a mobile DJ, you're looking for quick, fast. You don't want to be doubting your mix the whole night. You just want to daisy chain it through the sub and kick it out lefty righty for your speakers. And if you have more speakers, then you just keep daisy chaining lefty righty. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea. And especially once you get in that 50-foot world, depending on what you're doing, hopefully you eventually get to a point where you're using Cat 5 or something. Thank you so much, Jules. Appreciate the support. Yeah, really appreciate that. Didn't have to do that. Thank you. Okay, here's like a big blind spot of mine, is I've never touched a Lewitt mic. So I would love to answer this. I follow Lewitt. I see all their videos. I see their mics and all that. I've never played with it myself. I don't even know the features of the 441 Flex, unfortunately. So I just want to be honest about that. That being said, when the NT1 came out, if you take Rode at their word, it's the best-selling condenser microphone of all time. It's the quietest condenser microphone of all time, and it has 32-bit float. I don't know anything about the Lewitt 441, but I'm guessing it doesn't have those three. So that's a pretty big punch that Rode has pulled with the new NT1. That's a lot. That's 3 really good reasons. Imagine, you have your home studio and your setup or whatever, but then you can actually just take it as a USB mic on the go if you know you just need to capture something quick. It's that's pretty powerful. If you end up anywhere mobile or you just need to capture a sample or something, it's a lot of value there. Yeah, you bet. You're welcome. Go live again. Yeah, we'll see. I don't want to fry people. I don't want to fry myself too, but I kind of like the random questions here. We have it kind of soothes my ADD. I can talk about live sound. I can talk about a couple things. Maybe in some live streams we can get into demoing stuff. If people just want to see an A/B comparison between 2 mics, that's definitely feasible. I can just be grabbing stuff and testing it out. Or if you want to hear how all the different switches sound on the back of the Dynacaster or anything like that, we can just do testing, or I don't know. Also, if there's any YouTube-y related questions, I'm happy to talk about that too. I assume most people involved in microphone or video shopping or interested in YouTube as like a job or a career or as well. Yeah, I'll probably do 5 more minutes or something and then get out of here. See if anybody has any. Thanks for the help. Valuable. Nice. I wonder if there's a time. How do you guys feel about this time? Like, I'm doing it at 7 p.m. Pacific where I am right now, and that's like really convenient. I can just come in here after whatever. It's pretty low effort. But I'm wondering if different time is better. Mackie 16 channel versus MG 16. I don't know. I think when you get bigger the mixer. Mackie makes good stuff too. I just know, like, our shop, we did 1,200 events a year, and we never had a single issue. Like, some of our Yamaha mixers literally made it to 1,000 events. We had 10 or 12 MG10s, like the new gen and the old ones. We had a bunch of MG 16s. We just had them in soft cases and just beat the crap out of them. Like, they all went to many events per week. And just rock solid, like no issues. I know Mackie has that reputation too. It just didn't have that reputation with me just because I didn't, beat the crap out of it. When you compare that to like Behringer or something, it's not even close. I made some videos where I said, Behringers fall apart and everybody got upset. Said, mine doesn't. Well, I mean, if it sits on your desk, your Behringer probably won't fall apart. But if you're using it and you're taking it to events and stuff, they kind of do. But I don't think you can really go wrong, Mackie versus Yamaha. I know all the markets are different. If there's a big price difference where your market is, go with the cheaper one. I think they're both good. Appreciate our take on it. Yeah, that's like one thing I brought to the table. I remember when I first started YouTubing and I made a couple videos on the MG10, and the second I said it, I kind of realized why some of my videos work. I'm like, I've used this at 1,000 events, right? And that's like not a lot of content creators can say that. They know how their workflow is and they use it one specific way. But I think coming from the event industry, you get really comfortable using equipment like not how it's supposed to be used, and like those extra inputs and extra outputs and stuff that come with equipment becomes really valuable because if you're doing a press conference and your press box is full and you get 2 more camera guys showing up and there's, a super important delegate there that needs to deliver a message to all this media, like you have to figure out a way within like 30 seconds to get everybody a nice, clean line level feed. And yeah, that experience is super helpful. I'm glad I got it because, yeah, it's hard to recreate that type of thing in like a controlled studio. You're welcome. Oh, yeah, Lewis. Do I like the John Wick series? I do. I like the first one a lot. That whole premise of the dog is actually based off a true story from an ex-Marine who actually was a Navy SEAL. It was actually the same Navy SEAL from the Lone Survivor. I forget his name right now. But one of the twins, the surviving twin that came back from that whole event, I guess somebody actually did take his dog and he chased him down the highway. And there's a YouTube clip of it where he's on the radio to like 911. And yeah, pretty funny story. Imagine taking a dog from a Navy SEAL. But obviously John Wick kind of just took that one little thread and pulled it off into a different direction. I do find I haven't seen 4 yet, but 2 and 3, they just kind of keep getting longer and longer. And it's like, whoa, it's like 2.5 or 3 hours of just fighting. It's quite a bit. Desert Island. if I had to narrow it down, Rodecaster Pro, PSA 1 Plus, boom arm, Canary Star Quad, or Mogami Studio Gold XLR cable. And for the microphone, it's completely subjective. Right now, I love the Dynacaster. I think if you're doing if you want a dynamic mic, but at the same time, I actually like in my studio here, it's like pretty well treated and whatever. If I'm doing a one-person podcast, I'd be pretty happy at the Rode NT1 too. But I think if you're just saying like blank slate, best podcast equipment, Rodecaster SM7B, or Dynacaster, or NT1, it's between those three, PSA 1 and good XLR cable. Yeah. Cool. I'll give 3 more minutes. I'll wrap this up at 10 after. How has the quality been on the stream? I haven't actually checked it. Is like audio synced up? Does it sound clean? Is the level good on your end? I probably should have asked that right at the top. I haven't talked about the Volt 2 yet. I have the Volt 276. I feel so bad because it's such a good audio interface. And I think I've used it for one video on and I judged the headphone amp on it poorly. It doesn't drive 250 ohm headphones very well. But I mean, it's universal audio making a budget interface. So they clearly put all their cards in the preamp, and I have the 276, so you have the built-in compressor and all that stuff. So yeah, it's an awesome I need to make more videos on it. So use it for video conferencing. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I definitely think you get your value out of it. Bonus points if you pop for the 276 with the built-in compressor. I think that's just like genius. But I don't know if anybody, honestly, how long did it take you to learn and feel comfortable with post-processing audio? I find personally it's one reason that I've been leaning towards using the Rodecaster Pro more is I have a tendency to lose my reference, where I will think what I'm working on is really good, and then you go listen to something else and oh no, I made some mistakes. And from everybody that I talk to, I think that's pretty common. So I definitely have friends and colleagues and stuff like that know exactly what they're doing, and I mean that's just what makes them better at it than me, I guess. But in terms of EQing and compression and that type of thing, you just learn the rules, I guess. You know how to make a microphone sound more open or more this or that. So if you have a specific goal in mind, but honestly, most of the projects I work on aren't that crazy. I mentioned before, I come from a huge event background and a huge corporate, so nothing super, super creative. Don't forget to hit that like button all day. In-ear monitor for karaoke or live online. So don't buy those Amazon things. They're just horrible. Stick with Shure, Sennheiser, even Westone a little bit. If you're getting custom ones, Ultimate Ears are good. Stick to the reputable brands that you can get at B&H or Sweetwater. Don't be buying in-ear systems from Amazon. They're just heartache. Cool. I think that's about it for today. Again, super grateful. I'm happy how this turned out for the first time trying a live stream. Maybe we'll try again at like a completely different time of the day next week just to try it out. But yeah, thanks again for coming. Thanks again for watching the videos and supporting it. If you've ever used an affiliate link, thank you so much. That kind of keeps everything going here. So thankful for everybody. And yeah, thanks.